So the latest results are in for the new 2025 federal election, guys. It didn't go as planned. What did you guys think about that?
It didn't go as planned. Planned by who?
Yeah, that I have no words.
What do you mean?
I don't understand.
Everybody wants to win. Jagmeet said he was going to be the next prime minister of Canada. So that was his plan. He didn't plan to lose and leave the whole system, did he?
Did he plan for the NDP to lose 12 seats?
Yes.
Are you guys
just
saying
didn't know that was his plan?
Are you guys saying it's not Prime Minister Singh?
That's right.
It is not.
We're not. Unfortunately, the NDP didn't go anywhere.
No, they went down.
Yeah, I was going to say they definitely went somewhere.
They have 7 seats left.
Yeah. I think
exactly.
as of this recording, they may have
maybe less.
I think they have 6.
Oh, okay.
Leading in 1 because things are still being counted.
Yeah.
They probably have 7 anyways.
So it's a liberal minority, guys. They took it again. 4th term for this liberal government. Do we feel good about that? Do we feel bad about that? What do we think?
How does this keep happening, Josh?
I don't get it. People complain so much about the liberals, and
some people didn't.
They still are back in office.
Some people were scared of Trump.
Well,
That's what flipped it.
Yes, that was the liberal. That was their whole.
Because the conservatives
whole platform.
They had it when Trudeau was leaving.
Mm-hmm.
The conservatives were leading the popular vote.
Mm-hmm.
They were right there.
They were neck
Trump
and neck.
Started all his nonsense and flipped the script.
And I'm glad you brought up that topic first, Michael E., because at the end of the day, I do believe that this was an election all about America and how Canada is not America. There was nothing else involved. Nothing about the last 10 years that happened. Nothing about people's individual lives. I feel like what you're saying is 100% accurate. The election was basically just about how we feel about Donald Trump. And everything about Canada was out the window on that. And you know what? My justification for this thinking is like multifold. Because you know what happened? First off, every time Mark Carney got in front of whatever place and had his speeches, he was always like, it's an existential crisis. Donald Trump is attacking this country. We got to be afraid of that, and we got to do something about it. Every single time he ran on this fear tactic. And on that subject, there was polling done that said, between conservative decided voters and liberal decided voters, what reason are you voting for? Is it for, they asked basically, is it for the better Canada, or is it because of Donald Trump? And the overwhelming majority of liberal voters had decided it was because of Donald Trump, not because of a better future that they were casting their vote. And it was the exact opposite on the conservative side. Conservatives were voting for a better future and could care a little less about what Donald Trump has to say. That being said, if you watch the speeches between Mark Carney, Jagmeet Singh, and even Pierre, when they were conceding the election after the fact that the votes were being counted and we found out who was basically winning, we determined in the beginning of every speech, Jagmeet, Pierre, everybody talked about Donald Trump almost immediately. Like, that's what this election was about. It was about nothing else.
And that's what Donald Trump wants.
Who knows what Donald Trump wants, right?
Well, we don't know what he wants.
I know what he wants.
He likes to be the center of attention, and he just got a whole country to make their election all about him. So he probably loves it.
I don't know if that's exactly what he wants, but he definitely wants the resources and the economic benefits of Canada. That's for sure. He's been talking about the 51st state for a reason. It was because Justin Trudeau basically said, hey, you know what, without American dollars coming into Canada, we're not really much of a country. And after that point, that Justin Trudeau put it in Donald Trump's mind that we were the 51st state. Like, he just ran with it.
That was a helpful statement on his part.
Well, he wasn't a helpful leader.
He wasn't. But luckily, we have all of his cronies still in charge. With a new guy who's got some elbows.
So what did we surmise from this election? You know, we're basically at the same point we were before.
Nothing happened.
Yeah, there's 2 things that happen. You know,
and then also nothing happened.
Nothing happened really in terms of power, except you're right.
The NDP's gone.
Now that's what I was getting at.
Yeah.
To the 2 outcomes I see from this election are, first things first, the NDP. You know,
Gone.
what will they be?
Rip.
Rip. R.I.P. Jagmeet, first of all, the leader there, he lost his seat and he decided to be gone from leading the party. He's resigned, right?
Well, I mean, he had to. He lost his seat. They lost official party status. They barely exist. I mean, what are you going to do? At that point, you have failed in the large way. It's time to go and let someone else give it a crack. And further to that, like the NDP they basically don't exist right now. They cannot take what little influence they have left and use it to prop up the Liberals again, or they will never, ever come back into existence. That the voters that moved to Liberal because the NDP couldn't possibly tell them why they should vote NDP if they're just going to be the same thing, they will never come back to the NDP if the NDP doesn't start fighting what the Liberals are doing.
Yeah. I agree. There's no difference between those two parties. They're just two left parties, and we probably just don't need that. And that's what this election has shown us, right? Mm-hmm. They're gone basically. There's barely any of them around, and you know what? Nikki Ashton.
Yep. This riding that we're in right now.
Those are two different things. But yes, this riding lost an NDP seat to a Conservative. You're right. Mm-hmm. By 3,000 votes or something. So it's, you know what the difference here is, it's gone back and forth a couple of times.
That's
between NDP as the left party and Conservatives as the right party. Liberals we live in the West. Liberals are just not really popular. Barely anybody votes for them. They'd rather vote for NDP. So on a federal side, now it's going the other way because Nikki Ashton, who I was just talking about.
Nikki Ashton. Yeah,
who was her father?
Steve Ashton?
Was he on the Liberal Party? I can't remember.
I don't even know if it was Steve. I'm guessing. I think it was Steve Ashton.
Anyways, the point there is she was an NDP member for a long time in northern Manitoba, right?
Yep, that big riding.
That huge riding.
Most of the province.
Yeah, it would be NDP for a long time. It's dead. It's a Liberal stronghold now.
Yep.
She lost her seat, and this is the point we're making. I think Jagmeet killed the NDP to such an extent we don't know when they'll be resurrected as a party or relevance at all. Because when they supported that Liberal government
for so long,
and you know what, what's his name? Pierre Poilievre made that point. He's like they're basically the same party the entire time. And then when they had the debates, Jagmeet was trying to differentiate between NDP and Liberals, but the whole time that what was his name there? The French guy, help me out here. Blanchette was basically saying, you voted for it. You know, why did you support them? You supported it the whole time, right?
He's doing the voice.
He was basically making the exact point Pierre was making. Like, you guys are one and the same. Voice. So, yeah, the NDP. That big story here is the NDP is basically gone, and we don't know if they'll ever come back.
Well, I've heard some people blame the Conservatives for that. And that, you know, people like to blame the Conservatives for everything. So apparently the Conservatives were too good at pointing out the problems, the NDP. And they were so good at it, the NDP got completely crushed.
Well, good for them.
And I've also heard the same accusation leveled at them in the case of Justin Trudeau. And basically people telling me that they lost this election on their own because they were so good at crushing Trudeau and crushing Jagmeet Singh that the NDP disappeared. All that vote went Liberal when Trudeau was gone. Carney came in, and the people they crushed were dead, but it didn't matter anymore.
Yeah, you know what? That's good. You know what? Point out the failures of the other parties. That's what you're there for. You know, you're trying to strengthen everybody as iron sharpens iron, as they say. You know what? The thing here is, you know what? I don't know if we should need to talk about this NDP because
we've talked about them.
Yeah,
they've been mentioned.
They're based. Yeah, so they're. Let's move on.
Moving on to relevant things.
I wanna bring up another point that I observed after this election.
Mm-hmm.
There's some more hullabaloo.
Hullabaloo.
Yeah.
I think it's hullabaloo.
Some hullabaloo is, what will Alberta do?
Hullabaloo, what will Alberta do?
Exactly what I was getting at. You know what I'm talking about here?
They're going to separate from
They're
Canada.
going to separate. This is a much more prominent thing in like the 25 years I've been following politics here in Canada. It's always been Quebec will separate, blah, blah, blah. And then there was a little bit of a rising from Alberta, you know. But as we're seeing it, new polls have suggesting that almost a third of Saskatchewan and Alberta are open to the idea of separation and independence from Canada.
I don't think they want. It's not that they don't want to be part of Canada, though.
They want to be heard. It's called Western separation for a reason. Western alienation.
I think they do want to be part of Canada. They don't want Canada to keep crapping all over them like they don't matter.
Yeah. Well, if you abuse somebody long enough, are you just going to stay with that person or are you going to move on?
I mean, it's a good point.
So, like, are we getting to the extent now with a fourth Liberal term that Alberta is saying, maybe we've had enough. It's really time to forget about you guys.
No, it's okay because, you know, Carney's from Edmonton, so it'll be fine.
That's what they pretend, but I don't know. I'm much more curious, and I will follow this story because, you know what? It's interesting.
When did he last live in Alberta?
When did he last live in Canada? It doesn't matter.
There. Now you've asked the real question.
As of last year, he was telling the Americans that he was a European citizen, Mark Carney. So,
well, now he wants to turn Canada into a European country.
That is true. He said that as well. I don't know.
That doesn't even make sense.
Yeah. So, anyways, separation, is it gonna take hold stronger, you guys? Do you foresee any movement here?
I think it'll take quite a few more years of abuse for it to actually happen, but if the Liberals and just Eastern Canada in general, if they don't start realizing that there's something, you know, to the east of Ontario that matters that isn't called BC, these problems will get worse, and you know, it'll fester, and in 5, 10, 15 years, who knows what we could be dealing with. You know, like you said, people will eventually have enough and they'll be like, no more of this. So it would be good if Carney would sort of reverse the trend we've seen, especially with Liberals, where they just ignore everything that's the prairies. Basically, they're just not there. Who cares? We'll do whatever we want to them. We'll pass laws that that impede their industries, and then, you know, we'll happily take tax money from them. And, you know, it's just that kind of thing that has to stop.
Yeah, Michael Lee, I'm going to ask you a question. You know, in your observation of politics here in Canada, are you wondering the question, what is going to happen now in the future?
I am pondering it. I mean, Canada is now, like, essentially it's now a two-party system. Like, if you think about it for a second, because NDP is phased out, you've got the Bloc Québécois, which is basically just Quebec, and the Green Party, which essentially is like one seat.
Yeah, you don't even really need to talk about that.
You really only have two parties now in Canada, and no matter how much we seem to give our views and our opinions in regards to Liberal, Ontario, as you mentioned, Adam, they seem to just go Liberal all the time, which then basically the rest of Canada has no choice. Yeah, well, if you look at the map, watching the map yesterday, like I think Manitoba was half and half.
Yep.
The lower part of Manitoba was conservative.
Even looking at the seats, you're right.
Yeah. And then like Alberta and Saskatchewan, I think part of BC was all conservative. And like Ontario was just red.
It's 40-something percent.
There's more blue in Ontario this time than usual.
Yes. But there's still a lot of, I don't know if it's the baby boomers. I don't know.
It's Toronto.
Yeah.
Toronto is the problem.
Literally is the problem.
Keep voting Liberal over there no matter what happens.
And it's ridiculous. And it does make me worry about the future now, because it's like, you know, Pierre Poilievre can go on camera and say all these good things that he's promising for Canada and whatnot. And anybody hears it and anybody gets behind it, but when they go to the polls, it's a completely different situation.
I think the problem is people don't hear it because they've already bought into the narrative that he's a Trump lapdog or something. He's Trump-like, Trumpian. I heard all these stupid terms invented now that allow people to basically cast off what he's saying, like it's unimportant, like he won't do it. And then it's really strange because you think if Mark Carney comes out and says he's going to do basically the same thing, and these same people are telling us how great these plans are.
And on that point that you made, Mark Carney doing the same things as the Conservatives, he has been criticized by a guy in this room that the Liberal Party keeps stealing the Conservative platform.
Who was that?
Was it the Michael Lee?
Was it me?
Regardless of who it was,
Was it
both of you make valid points that I am interested in. Michael Lee asks, it's a two-party system. How is that going to affect Canada? And Adam points out that Liberals are copying Conservative ideas for the most part, at least in their promises. What their actual action will be, we'll find out. Adam and I will track it, and we'll probably talk about it later, and we'll see if it's true. But you have something to say, Mike?
Yeah, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
Go ahead.
Please cut him off. He talks too much.
I literally had a person at work today ask me, they're like, oh, it's good that the Liberals got back in because now they're actually doing something about the carbon tax. Now, like,
what?
It's still there.
It may not be what you think.
Did that hurt your brain a little bit?
It really did.
Like you don't listen, person. You don't understand what you just said.
Yeah.
and this is a discussion point that I'm willing to entertain. You know what? If basically half the country votes Liberal and half the country votes a Conservative, at least by the popular vote, which tells you what the majority of citizens are asking, you know what? You would think that having decent, honest people as politicians, if those people existed as politicians, you would think they would just work together to vote for the greater good of Canada. But that is not going to be the case. These people are just opposite, so like, what's the word I'm looking for? They're so separated.
Polarized.
Yes, thank you, Adam. They're polarized that they will not necessarily work together with what the other half of the majority of Canadians want. They are going to look to the separatist party from Quebec or those 6 or 7 NDP people that might hold some balance of power. You know what? That is quite ridiculous. You would think that with honest people, they would work together and vote in policy that both Conservatives and Liberal Party could agree on, and basically just have some kind of centrist view. But it's not going to be the case. You know what? I don't know what to say about that. I'm dreaming here, you guys.
So our politics now might just continue to descend into being American politics, where they're just the most divisive and polarizing they could possibly be. There's no ability to work with anyone across the aisle. It's just, whatever that guy says, I say the opposite, no matter what I really think. And if we go down that road, I think that's really sad. I don't think Canada needs to keep trying so hard to be the U.S. While saying that we're not the U.S. We aren't. Maybe we are not establishing ourselves well enough to be able to really prove that we're not the U.S. But honestly, we don't need to try to be them and emulate their politics, because it's not working great, and that's not going to work great here either.
But I mean, at the end of the day, that's exactly what we're doing. And
I know, I don't like it. That's what I'm saying.
Well, you know what? It goes to the low information voters we're talking about. You were talking earlier just about those people saying that like Poilievre's Trumpish or a lapdog or whatever. I heard so much of that ridiculousness, and I'm just disappointed with Canadians that don't look at policy. Like Mike just brought up the carbon tax thing. Even the stupid news would tell you that the carbon tax is gone, but it's not gone. It's only half gone. It's only gone for a certain part of Canadians, right? Like the Conservatives promised for the tax to be axed completely. That was like on all businesses and all industry and all Canadians.
And if you think he's not just going to raise the industrial carbon tax, that they don't even have to rebate back to us, because there's nothing in law saying they have to, and they haven't been. He will for sure just do that because he believes, he wholly believes that Canada needs to do all these things to save the environment, and he just is not open to the possibility that there are alternatives we could do that matter more on a planetary scale. So he's for sure going to just keep trying to choke off any sort of industry that uses conventional fossil fuels, and he's going to keep talking about this green energy superpower, which is just not a thing. It's not a thing. Doesn't exist anywhere. It's not going to exist for a long time. It's a fantasy in his mind, but he's going to keep trying to make it happen at our expense.
And I'm glad you brought that up. You know what? I don't know if Mike has
glad I
any
can make you
questions on
glad.
it, but I asked, like, what does this mean for the future of you guys? And that's maybe where we should lead this discussion, because we know who the prime minister is going to be for a little while now, until maybe a year, maybe who knows how long till the next election, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because you know what, that NDP has to survive, so they might.
They'll survive. I think.
Yeah, I'm just saying they might be the cause of a new election if they,
If they can pick
get
a
good
good
polling.
leader who can point out all the crap the Liberals are doing wrong
Mhm.
and make a case for, the more left-wing minded people to actually vote for them, then they'll come back.
But on that, Mike, did you want to ask a
I have
question?
a question.
Go ahead.
So the Liberals, it's a minority government, correct?
That's right.
Which
Mhm.
means they would still have to get some kind of, like, whatever they're trying to pass.
They got
have to-
169 seats.
They
Yeah,
only
but
need a few to help them.
Yeah.
They need a few to get to the majority. But
172, yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, like right now, if it stays as a minority, don't they have to go through some kind of, like, they can't just pass something? They have to.
They have to find those votes
Yeah.
from
Yeah.
a couple of people. Yeah.
That's the purpose of getting a majority, right? Is
Yeah.
the point that you have so many votes that if your whole party votes for something, it just happens no matter what anyone else does. 'Cause
Yes.
There's not enough of them.
Yes.
So because they don't have that 172, that magic number, they can't just assume that if they propose legislation or whatever that it will pass. It will likely pass, but they're going to need at least, whatever it is going to be 2 or 3 votes from another party to help them get it through. Because you can you safely assume on most things, maybe not everything, on most things, the Liberals are going to go, we're going to pass this legislation. The whole conservative number is probably just going to go, nope, denied. We're not for this. We vote against it. So that means they'll have to, in order to get enough votes to pass it, they'll have to get some help from the Bloc or the NDP.
Polarization right there. That's what that is.
That's what I
What
thought
it
that
is, yeah.
It doesn't always happen. Like they don't create legislation that the opposition will like, and it's kind of ridiculous. But on that note, I'll go back to Adam's talk about the Prime Minister of Canada, right? We haven't really talked about most of his policies. We've criticized them, but now what will come to fruition, Adam, with the future of a Liberal fourth term? Like,
do we really even know his policies, Josh? Like we watched him.
we know his values and his ideas.
Okay,
for
and
sure.
we know that, and we know that he's good at playing up people's fear.
He doesn't have to do that anymore. He's going to probably capitulate to
Right.
Donald Trump in
So-
the U.S. and then what's going to
So he's going to do that, and then the whole main platform they ran on of Trump is bad will be over, and then we have 3-something years in term left if they don't get toppled before that. So the question, I guess, that you're putting to me is what's next? And my answer to that is apart from we know that he won't do things he should do, like repeal Bill C-69 so we can help develop our industry.
Mhm.
But we watched him throughout this campaign essentially wait for the Conservatives to make a promise, and then he makes the same promise. So I guess in theory he might do some of that stuff, but I personally don't think he'll do any of it because I think he would just waited to see what people liked and then said he would do it so that he could get elected. But now that he's elected, I don't think he's going to do any of it. And I would go so far as to say that I don't know if he gives a crap if he gets elected again. He might just want to drag this out, see how far he can go, make as much money through Brookfield as possible in the time that he has, and not really be too worried about the damage that he leaves behind. And then whatever, next election comes along, if it doesn't look like they're going to win, he'll probably just peace out.
You know what? That's just so skeptical, Adam. How rude. He is our liberal savior. Just accept that he is going to save us from Donald Trump. I don't know why you can't accept that. But anyways, yeah, what they talked about, affordability crisis here in Canada and the economy. He kind of mentioned those things. He's like a big banker. He's supposed to know all about that. He's ran 2 central banks. I don't know what he's expecting to do here in Canada, but I think yeah. Housing was a big issue. He's got that plan. Supposedly, they're just going to pay a bunch of money into some kind of fund. And then I expect that they'll start divesting into the modular housing system, like, and Canadians will be able to get mail order houses or something. I don't expect them to build. He sat there or he traveled Canada and was like, we used to build stuff here in Canada after the war. He's an old man and he relates to like 100 years ago.
And then he started saying build baby build, which is like kind of funny when people are trying to connect Poilievre and Trump, and then Carney saying build baby build, which is like drill baby drill.
Yeah,
you didn't hear any CBCs throwing that in his face. Just
no, but housing is a big issue. You know what? He's going to keep a pause on immigration right now. The Liberals put a pause on immigration, and he said he's going to keep that in place. So we might not have that huge demand coming in on housing anymore. So that might be a benefit, and that's at least something that we're going to probably look forward to with this government, something they'll actually accomplish. But other than that, the housing market situation, no government's going to solve that on their own. And if affordability doesn't develop into something that Canadians can afford, like the average cost of a house doesn't come down or something, like, because I don't think wages are ever coming up again. Guys go and look up the data on the average income versus affording a house, because the discrepancy there is huge. It's absolutely insane.
It's astronomical.
Yeah, it's like 7 times the value of what it used to be or more, right? I don't know what else. Like what you said, Mark Carney wrote a book called Values. He has ideas and an ideology about this net zero situation.
That's what he cares about, is his green agenda. I think that's like most important to him. And he just talked about everything else to get elected, because he could see that when the Conservatives talked about it, people responded. So he's like, cool, I'll talk about that too. I'll get in here and I'll just enforce my green nonsense on everything. And I won't worry too much about the other stuff, unless I can make money off it.
The Canadian government previously, they had a 2050 agenda and a 2025 agenda and a 2035 basically a 2035 agenda with like markers. Carney talked about it previously when he was advising Trudeau. One thing that's going to happen, they have this EV mandate, right? Michael Lee's probably heard about this. By 2035, all vehicles in Canada that will be sold new have to be electric. And certain portions of vehicles sales across Canada coming up to then will have to be some form of net zero, because they're trying to reduce these emissions, they say. So I don't know what that means for Canadians. I guess everybody's going to go to Jeff Bezos and ask them for that new Slate truck. I mean, I might. It's going to be nicely priced, but the thing here is, you know what? That's what we can expect. If the Liberals continue, gas and diesel vehicles are going to just go away. I don't know what to say about that. It's going to be forced by legislation. Like when you listen to Mark Carney talk, he talks about how he basically has to put parameters in forced by the government in order to create different economies and benefits for those corporations to be net zero. What's that company? That steel, is it steel or aluminum company in Quebec that they're dealing with right now? Yeah, there it is.
Algoma?
It's Algoma Steel.
In Sault Ste. Marie.
In Sault Ste. Marie, Ontario. That's what we're talking about here. That company is one of the primary companies that he uses as an example, because they are working to net zero emissions. And he's talking about how much more efficient that company will be on the marketplace, because they will have net zero things in effect. And reporters have asked Mark Carney, like, how if you were to get rid of the industrial carbon tax, wouldn't that make it better for all of these companies? He's basically stated that creating the parameters that these companies work from, where they become net zero, will make this company more profitable if they work towards it then. I don't know if that's entirely true, because Algoma right now is already talking about some layoffs and cuts that they're going to make to their workforce, likely due to Donald Trump right now. But I mean, Donald Trump is not the only factor here. When the federal government starts to impose regulations on how the manufacturing of steel is going to occur, I mean, they're going to have to invest into whatever cuts and whatever costs of carbon or whatever it is that they're doing. It's going to affect them when they didn't have these regulations before, and other bodies like in the US don't have these regulations. Like Algoma may end up being unprofitable here in Canada, and it'll be a gift to Donald Trump.
How are they going to compete on the world scale? Their product is going to be so much more expensive than what's coming out of the U.S. or anywhere else. So like how are you going to convince the world to buy their product? The only way is if the government subsidizes it completely. How are they going to do that? They'll have to get money from somewhere, which is, I guess, the industrial carbon tax that they charge on all the other steel companies that aren't conforming to the same rules.
Mm-hmm.
How long will they last for, though? They'll move. They'll close up shop. They'll move to the U.S. Whatever, and then you won't have that carbon tax coming in to subsidize these net zero companies anymore. And then what? Right? Like, we're not China. We can't just pull a colossal amount of money out of our ass and subsidize whatever we want for the whole world. We don't have that capability. So like, there's no long-term goal here. There's like this fabricating this demand for this high-priced version of something we can already make for a lower price. The world is not going to conform to that, and no one in Canada will be able to afford it because they'll be taxing everything into the ground to make it happen. I just don't see any way for this to work in long term, and like, they're just going to have to ruin so much to do it. And
there is a goal here, Adam. We've talked about it before. We're talking about it partially right now. Net zero is the goal, right? And it's an ideology that these liberals have. That's the far left's idea. The thing here is, what is going to occur? Gifting Americans our Canadian jobs when regulations and taxes become too much. That is
they're already doing that,
and it's going to continue. I don't see any way around it. You have to create this system in place where like everybody is playing by the same rules, and that just doesn't happen. Countries tend to compete with different regulations and taxes and other benefits to get different jobs, and that's just what's happening right now. Like, economies are changing, and that's just how it's going to be. The thing I'm most concerned about, we haven't talked about it on this show in a little while. What happens, Adam, when Canada becomes net zero and then we aren't producing any more carbon, or at least not more than we capture, or whatever it is that they say? Like, what happens to greenhouse gases, climate change? Is the planet saved?
Yeah,
it is. Oh, yeah, great. Well, then we should continue doing
it's
his
saved
program.
to the tune of 1.5% of global emissions.
Yeah,
that's if Canada stopped producing all emissions tomorrow, global emissions would drop by 1.5%. It wouldn't matter at all. And big polluters like China and India and the U.S. and everyone else who are just doing whatever they want because they're doing what they can afford or what makes sense. They'll keep driving it up, and they would probably just compensate for whatever we took out of the atmosphere in no time at all. And
37 days is what China compensates for.
And it would be like we did nothing. We just basically wrecked a whole country and wrecked, complete industries, all for absolutely no gain. And then what'll happen is Canada will be so weak. We'll just get taken over by someone who will come along and harvest all our resources anyways, because we stupidly sat here on them in the ground that everyone knows they're here, and we did nothing to defend them, and we did nothing to extract them, and we did nothing at all. And we just sat on our high self-righteous horse.
Well, Mark Carney has said that we will be an energy superpower. Do you disagree with Mark Carney? Because that is his intended goal, at least from what I've heard in the promises.
I think I mentioned earlier already that is not a real thing and doesn't exist for a reason.
It exists in his mind.
Yeah.
He basically wants to create wind and solar, and we have.
He's creating wind, all right. Lots of hot wind. Just like, there's nothing practical about this, and it's all just very frustrating to hear people buy into it.
Yeah, I mean, we have jurisdictions around the world that have tried some of these things. What happens in California where they have some wind and solar? I mean, why don't we have nuclear is another question, but what happens in California, Adam?
Fires happen.
Besides the fires, do they have a consistent grid?
No, they have power outages.
Power outages like crazy. I mean, what happened in Spain and that's a different scenario too. They're having power outages, likely a hacker or something. I don't know what happened there.
That could be us too if we don't smarten up. I mean, we're managing to require more and more energy. We're going to totally just handcuff our ability to produce it. Where do we think that's going to end? We need more energy, and we refuse to produce it.
Well, we're going
to build some windmills to save the day. Come on. I mean, it helps, but it's not like wind and solar are not the solution by themselves. They are part of an answer, but they are not the answer.
Well, going to the future with these liberals right now, we were threatened that the conservatives would take away your dental care and probably your health care, create a 2-tier, 3-tier healthcare system, and take away child care and all that stuff. Do we see any of those programs increasing in I won't say value, in spending?
Of course, they'll increase in cost as more and more people need them.
Mm-hmm.
So they'll just have to spend more on them.
Do you think the dental care will turn into a universal social system here in Canada?
Probably not, as long as the NDP doesn't exist.
You don't think? You think the liberals will be conservative enough to not spend money unless forced to?
They never wanted to pass dental care.
Mm-hmm.
The NDP made them do it.
Mm-hmm.
They did it to get their support, and I guess it worked for someone, because here we are.
I mean, it was the only promise that the NDP candidate had for me.
Yeah.
She was like, we got you dental care. Not me. You didn't get me dental care. You just got me extra pay for.
No, lots of people who are getting dental care through work can't even take advantage of the program. So, I mean, it's helpful for some people, and that's great. But I don't know that this was the right way to do it.
So, moving to the future, Donald Trump and the tariff talk. That is.
I thought we were saved already from that. Haven't we been saved?
We will be saved shortly. I'm sure that Carney will move on that sometime.
It's 7:40. He didn't save us yet.
I don't know what
we just
did.
Elected him. He didn't deserve to be elected, and what is he doing? He's not even saving us.
Well, you know what?
Useless.
Here's what I'm thinking, guys. After whatever they resolve for this tariff talk and Donald Trump, because I mean Donald Trump's here till when? He was elected in 2024. Right? He started his term, I guess, in the beginning of 2025.
In January of this year. So a while. He's here for a while.
He's here for a while.
We just gotta accept this, whether or not we like it. It's what it is.
But he's got his goals, right? And Canada has to negotiate with him, and I'm sure they will. I mean, they're a little bit buddy, those billionaires or whatever Mark Carney is.
Well, he did. He endorsed Carney and the Liberals. So
yeah. So the thing
probably
here is, where do the tariff talks stop and negotiations begin? Because you know what, that's the thing to watch, I think, over the next little while, because that was the only thing that changed this election. It was all about Donald Trump, and whatever happens with these tariffs, whether Mark Carney does something good for the country, or at least viewed good by the majority of Canadians, or if it gets worse with the Americans, right?
What can he do?
Like what I'm saying here is like with Donald Trump and Mark Carney, some kind of resolution is going to happen. These governments don't sit stale completely, They do something whether we like it or not. There's going to be an election sooner than later in a minority government situation, okay?
Well, how long do they last on average? Around 2 years?
What? Yes, 18 months to 2 years. Yeah. So the thing here is, at that point, there's going to have been a midterm election in the U.S. The Democrats will probably take up a little bit more power, and Donald Trump will be held to less power in the what do you call it, in the not the Senate but the House of Representatives.
Yeah.
So the thing here is, Canada might look at the next election with Mark Carney as either more favorable to him if he does something with Donald Trump that Canadians like, and we might get a majority Liberal government, or they're going to forget entirely about the tariffs because they forgot entirely about the lost liberal decade.
Yeah.
So, you know what? The next election is going to be something completely different, They'll
be excited for net zero and forced EVs and 50 or 60% income tax. And I guess it's already 50% in some brackets, but whatever. Like how is he going to fund all this stuff he's going to do? That's what concerns me. Canada has a productivity issue. There's already, unemployment is rising, and we're dealing with this job losses from tariffs or whatever it's going to be, and he wants to do all this stuff that is going to prevent job creation and probably destroy jobs. It won't create good wages, but it will drive up the cost of whatever we're allowed left to buy here when they're done banning everything that isn't green. And who's going to afford any of it? It's very frustrating. Just very frustrating looking at all this.
Yeah, you know what? I agree. Well, you know what? Stay tuned to Leak Spec, and we will criticize the heck out of this government's spending and future plans, and we'll keep you guys posted.
Yeah. Hopefully this won't be as bad as it looks, guys.
Fingers crossed.